So now that we're up to the rear brakes, in order to replace the rear brake pads and calipers, the electronic e-brake must be brought in by a scan tool. So today I'm using the ArtiDiag800 Bluetooth OBD2 scanner. Best part, it's Bluetooth. I will be doing a full review on this scanner. So far I've had it for about 2.5, 3 weeks, and I love it. Haven't picked up my Snap-on scanner ever since. So we take the VCI dongle out, we connect it to the vehicle, we'll turn the key on. Now, one of the best features of this scan tool is the maintenance and service options. What it has in there is a bunch of quick links to do what you need to the vehicle instead of going through each ECU looking for what you need to do. So what we're doing here is we're replacing the rear brakes. So we go into brakes. It's going to connect to the VCI dongle. We are connected. So we are we're working on an Audi. We're connected to the VCI and we're connected to the shop Wi-Fi. We select Audi. Ignition is on. Other models. Now it could be either in parking brake or brake electronics. Every car can be different. So we are going to go into parking brake. Read faults, clear faults, open rear brake caliper, close rear brake caliper, auto rear brake pad replacement, brake caliper function test. So what we're doing, we're going to open the rear brake calipers. Best part about it being Bluetooth, we can walk over to the rear and make sure it's actually working. That sound right there, that's the piston getting retracted into the motor. So we'll be able to compress the piston and replace the pads and replace the rotor. Now, even with the factory scanner, it waits 30 seconds after the procedure has been completed. At this time, we do in fact have a e-brake flashing light in the cluster, and that just tells us that the rear e-brake or rear brakes is in service mode. All right. Back out, back out, back out. Do you really want to quit? Yes. It'll give you a reminder to remove the VCI. Hit OK. Back out. Now always key off before you remove the VCI dongle. And that's it. You know what, guys? That's lunch. So we're going to go through all the tools needed for rear brake pad and rotor replacement. We still have the T30. We still have the baby pry bar. We got rid of the 21 and we got a 3/8 on a long ratchet, giggity, with an 18mm for the caliper bracket. We also have a 13mm swivel on the electric ratchet. And we have the thin wall wrench. We'll show you why we need to use a thin wall and not a normal size. And of course, we got the hammer to bang that rotor out. Let's get to replacing. What we do first is we will break this caliper bolt free. And now, you see how that's just spinning like that? Well, the thick wall or the normal size wrench will not fit in there, as you could see. So what we do is we use the thin wall wrench, nice and thin. Unfortunately, that's an unfortunate giggity. Stick it on in. That's a good giggity. And then see how it holds it? Now we wouldn't be able to do that. Come on out, what the hell? We would not be able to do that with the large or the normal size wrench. So now that we have both caliper bolts out, we can stick our pry bar in and we can slowly slowly bring that piston back. See how now we have a gap there? So now we just take our pry bar, push against it. Now our piston is fully retracted. Now we could remove this caliper. See, piston's in. We set it off to the side. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at the thinness of this pad. Good thing we're replacing it. Alright, so we'll take this caliper bracket off, we'll clean it up, we're going to replace all the hardware. And we also need an 18mm right here. We have an 18 holding the caliper bracket. We'll break that free and then we'll use our electric ratchet. So now we're going to break those 18s free. Move the caliper over just a little bit. We have plenty of leeway with the brake line and with the harness here, so you could move the caliper over. Get that on there. Break it free. Go to the next one. Break it free. There's one. Here's two. Brackets out. Pads out. Hardware gone. You guys noticed only the front brakes have a wear sensor. The rear on this vehicle does not have a wear sensor. So we're going to take the rotor off. Now we're going to beat that rotor off, giggity. One shot, gone. Take this out. Hit it with a wire brush. Get whatever that's in there out of there. A little bit of anti-seize, because you never know who's going to be the next guy. It might be you. A little bit there, a little bit there. Now we're ready for the rotor. Put the pin back on. Install the rotor. Rotor's installed. Now, time to clean up the caliper bracket. Now, when cleaning the rear brake caliper bracket, what we like to do, or at least what I like to do, is I clean in here. I clean in here. So all we do is we take a wire brush. Some people use a wire brush, other people use a cookie on a grinder. It all works. Clean that out there. Clean that out there. So after we hit it with the brush once, just give it a little spritz with some brake clean. Hit it with the brush again, both sides. And now we're ready to grease. We're ready to grease in here behind the pad hardware, and we're ready to grease the caliper pins. So we use the same grease that we used on the front calipers. Just grease the pin up. Not too much, not too little, just enough to where the shaft is nice and coated. Giggity. Make sure it moves good. Do both pins. Always do both pins, and try to remove it. Try and remove the boot from here and not from here, because if you do that, you might just squeeze grease out and make a mess. The same thing. Just a little bit, just a little bit. Stick it on in. Giggity. Now for the grease portion of here, what I like to do is I like to do the front half of each side, because once you put the hardware on, that grease might want to spread out a little bit more. So let me walk over, we'll get the hardware and we'll install it. Alright, so now that the bracket is fully greased up on where it should be, there's two reasons why I grease there. One, so when the grease does travel, it'll stay within there, and two, the grease won't come out here and come in contact with the rotor. You don't want to contaminate the rotor and you don't want to contaminate the pads, so you just want to use just the right amount of grease. Not too much, not too little, just right. So now that we got grease behind the hardware, put a little bit of grease on it, right where the pad sits. Right where the pad sits, and so that's good for pad movement, and also it's really good for installation of the new pads. You won't struggle as much as you think you would without that grease. So now that this caliper is fully dressed and ready to install, let's go back to the wheel and install this caliper bracket. We are back at the wheel now, and just for note, we do have two different size caliper bolts. Honestly guys, it's very hard to mess this up. Yeah, you can get the long one in the short hole, but you can't get the short one in the long hole, giggity. So, FYI, top one, long one goes on top. We put the caliper in, or caliper bracket in. Bolts. Bolts, you're fingering them on in, giggity, just to get them started. Get the electric ratchet, make sure you're going in the correct direction. Send it on home. That's one. That's two. And then you give it the old calibrated elbow German torque. Good and tight. Give it a little that. Give it a little that. Caliper brackets installed. Now for pad installing. So we're at the rear brake pads, and just like the fronts, what I like to do is I like to put a little bit of grease on where it comes in contact with the caliper bracket. Right here, and here. But since there's no sticky, what I'm going to do is on the piston side, I'm going to put a little coat of grease, and on the caliper side, I'm going to put a little coat of grease here. So let's go to the caliper bracket. We're going to install the pads. Here's the outer. Slid right in. You saw that, guys? If you lube things right, it'll just slide on in, giggity. Look at that movement. Perfect. So now, put a little bit of grease where the caliper comes in contact there. And, you know, we'll put a little happy bush on the back where the piston comes in contact with the pad there. Now with the new brake pads comes new caliper hardware, comes new caliper bolts. Flip this over, make sure the lines are in their proper positions. We start the bolt. Start this one. Get the 13mm swivel. And get your thin wrench. We do it till it stops, and then we give it a little extra. Oh, drop the light. Wasn't planning on that. Do the next one. Boom. So that's how you perform rear brake replacement. Now we're going to hook up the TOPDON scanner and bring back this e-brake piston so there's no warning light. We're going to road test the vehicle, make sure there's no abnormal noise or vibrations, make sure the brakes are burned in properly, and the car is going to go to detail and the customer is going to be happy. So now that we're done with the front and rear brakes, as you can see, we got the brake light flashing at us because the rear e-brakes are in service mode. We got our TOPDON diagnostics, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring those rear calipers in. Connected. Key on. We're gonna go to maintenance. We're gonna go to brake. We're gonna connect to the vehicle. Dongle's connected. Scan tool's connected to shop Wi-Fi. Obviously working on an Audi. Yep. Other models. Parking brake, because that's where we were before. Close rear brake calipers. Selected. Let's have a listen. You hear that? They're going in. It hit the stop, then it goes back a little bit. Once again, we wait 30 seconds. The warning light is now out, not flashing. E-brake button is not flashing either. When this is complete, we will apply the e-brake and de-apply the e-brake to ensure proper operation. Then we're going to go for a road test. But even before the road test, we still got a brake fluid exchange to do. So that's next. Good thing I didn't put the wheels back on. So now we're up to the brake fluid exchange. We have the fluid pusher extractor machine, the good old brake fluid flush machine. This is the special tool attachment. We took the reservoir cap off, which is also the level sensor and the brake fluid master. So we're going to attach that guy right there. Attach him there. We're going to take the hose right here and unroll it. And we're going to attach it. We're going to supply some shop air once we get it into the air. Well, once we get the vehicle in the air, we'll connect this here, and then we'll crack a bleeder open and let's go. Alright, so we have the bleeder set. We have my wrench set to go. We're going to supply shop air. We're going to flip this switch here. We're going to watch this gauge right here go up. Alright, we got pressure. We're going to crack this free. And as you can see, the fluid just travels, and then it goes into my little homemade bleeder right here. Always start off with the outside bleeder if you have two bleeders. And as per Audi repair manual, we start at the left front caliper first, and we end with the right rear caliper. I know that sounds weird, and when I first started working here, I questioned it so much. But that's what the manufacturer states, so that's what we do. So this is how we do a brake bleed, guys. So, recap, we did front and rear brakes, we did 60,000 mile major service, we replaced the exhaust sleeve. So this is how we do the brake fluid exchange, guys. We supplied shop air to the special tool here, our brake bleeder. We flipped the lever on this side right here. We started gaining pressure. We opened up the bleeder, and now we're bleeding. But we're being cool about it and nice and clean because all the fluid is getting caught in my reservoir right here. And as you can see, this car had some Shrek piss in it. We're getting out. We're getting all that Shrek piss out. So in recap, we did front and rear brakes, 60,000 mile major service, exhaust sleeve replacement, and now we're doing a brake fluid exchange. After this, we're going to road test it, burn in the brakes, make sure the vehicle stops correctly. So guys, thank you. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification for further content.